Look at the children, their little hands still soft from the womb, eyes wide with wonder, hearts wide open, ready to love anyone who loves them back. Children don't come into this world with hate. They don't come in knowing pain. They come in pure. If you're a Christian, you say they were born without sin. And whether you believe that or not, one thing's for sure: they're born without blame, without burden, without fear. But for black children born into slavery, that innocence never stood a chance. Before they could say mama, they were being taken. Before they could crawl, they were being sold. They never got to fall asleep in peace and never got to wake up feeling safe. They were born into a world where love was a risk, where mothers held their babies close, knowing they might be gone by morning, where fathers watched helplessly as someone claimed ownership over their child, and they couldn't do a thing about it. Imagine being that mother, your baby ripped from your arms, and there's nothing you can do. Imagine how small that must have made the father feel, to be a man, but still powerless. And every day after that, you scan the faces of passing children. Is that him? Is that her? This wasn't a one time thing. This was generations of black children who never got to just be children. From birth, they were born into struggle, into survival, into silence. And then we ask, why didn't they fight back? Why didn't they run? But what if struggle was all they ever knew? What if they didn't even know there was anything else? They didn't dream of freedom until they heard whispers from another plantation, until they dared to believe maybe, just maybe, there was more than this. Can you imagine being 3 years old and ripped from your mother's arms, never seeing her again? Can you imagine growing up never knowing who your parents were, where you came from, or what love even feels like? That was the reality for so many black children during slavery in America. Some were born into bondage, never knowing freedom. Others were sold before they could even speak full sentences. Enslavers didn't care if a baby had just learned to walk. They saw them as property, not people. Children were sold at auction like livestock. Sometimes they were taken away just to punish the mother. Sometimes they were sold because they were too young to resist. These weren't just farm hands in training. They were used. Some were given as gifts, some were leased out. And yes, some were abused in ways no child should ever experience. And don't let nobody fool you. Those kids weren't just in the big house playing with the master's children. They were out there working too, in the fields, in the heat, in the dirt, even in the sugarcane fields, which were some of the most brutal. You remember how I told you about how bad sugarcane was? Well, after cutting it, they had to feed it into these massive kettles that sat over open flames. The sugar had to be boiled down. Did you know how many kids got hurt doing that? Limbs lost, burns, scars that never healed, and not just physically. There are stories of children forced to watch their parents be beaten, or worse. There are stories of children hiding in fear, trying to make themselves invisible so they wouldn't be the next one taken. Imagine living like that, day in and day out, not knowing if you'd still be with your family tomorrow. And even when they did grow up, they carried that trauma with them. The loss, the confusion, the stolen identity, that's generational trauma, and that's what gets passed down. We talk about foster care now, we talk about broken homes, but the blueprint for that was slavery. Systems designed to break up families and disconnect children from everything that made them whole. And for those of y'all who think this kind of thing can't happen anymore, remember just a few years ago when they took all those immigrant children away from their parents at the border and put them in cages, called it detention center? And just like slavery, they said it was legal. Some of those kids were reunited, but some never were. They never told us what happened to all of them. Some were just lost in the system. So before you go to thinking this doesn't happen anymore or that it can't happen again, understand that it already has. It just looks different. These are children, and they grow up to be adults who carry that pain, that fear, that mistrust. This is what trauma looks like when it grows up. So when we talk about slavery, don't forget the children. Not just the men who were ripped, not just the women who were assaulted, but the little ones who never had a birthday, never got a bedtime story, never even got to keep their name their mama whispered in their ear. And of course, you already know what I'm about to say. They don't teach us this in school because this is the part where they were the monster. This is the part that makes you feel it. This is the part that makes it real. and they don't want that. So comment, like, and share to help keep these stories alive. And make sure you subscribe for more stories that they won't dare to put in your textbook. Peace.